Hello, everybody. This is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Part 2, Chapter 8. Alexey Alexandrovich found nothing out of the way in the fact that his wife and Vronsky had held a rather pronounced tete-a-tete, but it seemed to him that others showed some astonishment, and he resolved to keep Anna under his observation. According to his usual custom, when he reached home, Alexey Alexandrovich went to his library, threw himself into his armchair, and opened his book at the place marked by a paper cutter, and read an article on papistry till the clock struck 1. From time to time he passed his hand across his forehead, and shook his head as though to drive away an importunate thought. At his usual hour he prepared for rest, but Anna had not yet returned. With his book under his arm, he went to her room, but instead of being preoccupied as usual with considerations appertaining to his governmental duties, he was thinking of his wife and of the disagreeable impression which the state of things caused him. Unwilling to go to bed, he walked up and down with arms behind his back, feeling the necessity upon him of some reflection on the events of the evening. At first thought it seemed to Alexey Alexandrovich very simple and natural to speak with his wife on the subject. But as he reflected, it came over him that the matter was complicated in a most vexatious fashion. Karenin was not jealous. A husband, in his eyes, offered his wife an insult in showing jealousy, but he saw no special reason for reposing implicit confidence in his young wife, and for believing that she would always love him. It was not this, however, that he asked himself. Having hitherto been free from suspicions and doubts, he assured himself that he would have absolute trust in her. Yet, as he dwelt upon these details, he felt that he was placed in an illogical and absurd situation where he was powerless to act. Till now he had never come in contact with the trials of life, except as they met him in the sphere of his official functions. The impression which the present crisis made upon him was such as a man feels who, passing calmly over a bridge above a precipice, suddenly discovers that the arch is broken, and that the abyss yawns beneath his feet. The abyss in his case was actual life, and the bridge the artificial existence, which till the present time had alone been open to him. The idea that his wife could love another man occurred to him for the first time, and filled him with terror. Without stopping to undress, he kept walking up and down the regular steps over the echoing floors. First he went through the dining room, lighted with a single burner, then the dark drawing-room, where a feeble ray of light from the door fell on his full-length portrait, which had been recently painted, and then his wife's boudoir, where 2 candles shed their radiance on the costly bric-a-brac of her writing-table, and on the portraits of parents and friends. When he reached the door of her bedroom, he turned on his heel. From time to time he stopped and said to himself, "Yes, this must be cut short, it must be decided, I must tell her my way of looking at it. But what can I say? What decision can I make? After all, what has been done? She had a long talk with him, but whom does not a society woman talk with? To show jealousy for such a trifle would be humiliating for us both." But this reasoning, which at first sight appeared to him conclusive, suddenly lost its cogency. From the door of her sleeping-room he returned again to the dining-room. Then, as he crossed the drawing-room, he thought he heard a voice saying to him, "The rest seem surprised. Therefore there must be something in it. Yes, the thing must be broken short off. You must be decided. But how?" His thoughts, like his steps, followed the same circle, and he struck no new idea. He recognized this, passed his hand over his forehead, and sat down in her boudoir. There, as he looked at Anna's writing-table, with its malachite ornaments and a letter unfinished, his thoughts took another direction. He thought of her and how she would feel. His imagination showed him his wife's life, the needs of her heart and her intellect, her tastes, her desires, and the idea that possibly she could, that absolutely she must, have an individual existence apart from his, came over him so powerfully that he hastened to put it out of his mind. This was the abyss that he must fathom with his gaze. To penetrate by thought and feeling into the soul of another was to him a thing unknown, and seemed to him dangerous. And what is most terrible, he said to himself, is that this wretched uncertainty comes upon me just as I am about to bring my work to completion. He referred to a law that he wished to have passed, and when I have the greatest need of all my mental powers, of all my equanimity. What is to be done? I am not one of those who cannot face their misfortunes. I must reflect, I must take some stand and get rid of this annoyance, he added aloud. I do not admit that I have any right to probe into her feelings or to scrutinize what is going on in her heart. That belongs to her conscience and comes into the domain of religion, he said to himself, rejoiced that he had found a law applicable to the circumstances that had arisen. Thus, he continued, the questions relating to her feelings are questions of conscience, in which I have no concern. My duty lies clearly before me. Obliged as head of my family to watch over her, to point out the dangers which I see, responsible as I am for her conduct, I must, if needful, make use of my rights. And Alexey Alexandrovitch laid out, in his mind, a plan by which he would speak to his wife, and all the time he regretted the necessity of wasting his time and his intellectual powers in family matters. But in spite of him, his plan assumed in his thought the clear, precise, and logical form of a report. I must make her understand as follows. First, the meaning and importance of public opinion. Second, the religious significance of marriage. Thirdly, the misfortunes which might assail her son. Fourthly, the misfortunes which might befall herself. And Alexey Alexandrovitch twisted his fingers together and made the joints crack. This gesture, which was a bad habit of his, calmed him and helped to bring him back to moral equilibrium, of which he stood in such need. The rumbling of the carriage was heard in front of the house, and Alexey Alexandrovitch stopped in the middle of the dining-room. He heard his wife's steps on the stairway. His sermon was all ready. But still he stood there, twisting his fingers until they cracked again. And though he was satisfied with his little sermon, he trembled when he saw her come, with fear of what the consequences might be.